sorry.
Here you are! We did it! Okay.
We're so clever!
How'd you do it? Oh, the cleverness of you. How did you do it?
So, I Googled it.
Well done.
Like the total cool kid that I am.
You guys, isn't this the collaboration you've all been waiting for? Let's give it up for MaukusNoise! Welcome to the OzVlog!
Hello and welcome. I feel like I should have like green screened myself a room of Peter Pan memorabilia, but I've got 41 books and that's it, and they don't want to come over here. They're over there. I can see them. So it's just me and my flag. That's it, but it's fine.
This is my first transcontinental live. This is amazing. Oh, somebody wrote in the comments, thank goodness for technology. And I know, right? This stuff would have been unthinkable even a decade ago to be able to share our fandoms like that.
Yeah, see, this is why I got so genuinely surprised when people enjoyed the content that I make. I feel like you probably had this too. Like when I was growing up, just to sound like a proper oldie, like we didn't have internet. We did like you could talk to people you knew and that was it. Like, and no one I knew cared about Peter Pan because it's a dumbass kid story. Like no one cared. Yeah. So I just had this all to myself. And now it's like, oh, I can talk to other people who actually listen to me.
I know exactly what you mean. I got, none of my classmates understood my obsessive compulsive, fixation with the Wizard of Oz. They were all kind about it, but it was like, okay, we've heard, we understand, now shush.
We know you don't like this. We know this. We know that's wrong. Okay, can you just... We're doing science right now. Could you just not?
Hidden Violets just said, your makeup is incredible. How long does it take you to do your looks?
I've got quicker because a bit like I do a lot of makeup for cosplay, so I have got quicker since starting TikTok. To be honest, I blame TikTok because when I first started TikTok, I was in Mollymauk, which is bright purple with like a tattoo on his face like once a week and making content because I hadn't quite realized that you could save more than 5 drafts at a time. Learning that blew my mind. So
yeah, somebody commented because I have a couple hundred drafts, just like stuff, because I like to answer people's questions like you do. That's both of our shticks. So when I see a question that I want to answer, I just quickly make a draft, save it, and I get back to it. That way I can remember where it came from.
So I've got a bunch of drafts that are just like the dog or my feet, whatever I'm doing at the time.
Me too.
Just so I can be like, this question, answer this question before it gets lost, because I don't get like. People comment on old videos all the time and I do not see it. Like if it's older than a week, I will not see it because it will get washed out by everything else. And I feel quite bad because I'm sure they're great questions, but like if I don't save it, I won't see it. So hint, guys, if you want your questions answered, put them in the latest video. And that's not just a ploy to get you to watch more of my content, but it also totally is.
Got a plug. So somebody just asked, this must work, just asked, what you think about Peter Pan Live. And that's a really good segue because we talked when we discussed doing this, we talked a lot about NBC's live programming. Now, NBC started live musicals with The Sound of Music, and then they decided to do one every holiday season. And in consecutive seasons, they had Peter Pan Live and then The Wiz Live the next year. So 2014 was Peter Pan Live, and then 2015 was The Wiz Live. So tell me your thoughts about Peter Pan Live. Oh, thank you for the roses.
Peter Pan Live. Well, that's a thing that happened. It was on TV, and it happened.
I'd like to do my impression of Christopher Walken as Captain Hook. Peter Pan has a mother. What are my lines? Okay.
Just be like, is the script written somewhere on the wall? Did they put it somewhere for me? Like, yeah.
Somebody owes an explanation as to why he did not have cue cards.
Why? Like, put it on the back of a pirate who's always in front of him, Just have, like, I don't know, man. I felt bad. It was one of those, like, when something's cringy funny? That wasn't.
Yes.
I wasn't laughing. I was like, no, this is, no. Like, the sets were pretty. I can say something very nice about Peter Pan. Like, 2 nice things. 1, the ensemble were amazing. And the sets were great.
Oh, those gents they had dancing on the pirate ship, they were clearly real dancers, while everybody else was kind of
Right?
doing box steps and very gentle shuffles. Everybody else was like pas beret, and they're like, and
Yeah, they're just like shuffles.
oh my gosh, but it was notoriously bad, especially Peter Pan's performance, because you are obviously a huge fan of the character Peter Pan. So you pay, I'm sure, close attention to
I,
each individual
I
performer. So tell me about what you thought about the lady who portrayed Peter in Peter Pan Live.
Well, I would just like to say Alison Williams can act in movies when she has more than one take. She could not act in that, which was very sad because I love this role. And I did a sort of 10-minute rant in a YouTube video talking about it at one point where I was like, how do you care this little about a role that I would kill for, but you don't want to round it on yourself, whatever. But yeah, she looked like she was doing that thing where a kid in a show is remembering their line and paying no attention to what's going on around them. Just like they're going to speak. When they finish speaking, I'm going to say what comes next. And that was it. Singing voice was lovely, but that cannot save it. I would rather watch someone who's a weak singer and a great actor any day.
When I was taking acting classes, the number one thing we were told is that acting is basically reacting and to not look like you're anticipating your next line. But they also not only had lines, but choreography, wire work. They had so much to think about. Also, the nerves of being on live television, which people who do mostly camera work probably are not used to.
Yeah.
So,
which is why a lot of the ensemble cast were probably better, because I think a lot of them were drawn from the stage. And I had it pointed out to me the other day that the last playing Wendy plays Regina George in one of the Mean Girls runs, I think.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure. Someone said that in the comments, and I was like, well, no wonder I said she was great. I was like, the girl playing Wendy was great. I mean, the character was I didn't like the script they gave Wendy, but she was doing a great job, and she was doing great. I was like, yeah, no wonder she was great. She's from the stage. So I think that was a sort of lesson in, like, don't bring movie actors onto the stage. It doesn't always work. Like, Hugh Jackman can do it because he started on the stage. I didn't know him as Wolverine. Hello, I'm a theater kid. I knew Hugh Jackman as that guy from Oklahoma.
Yes!
Right? And then I'm like, what are you doing in a movie?
He's being
Wolverine. And then he was great. I was like, okay, you're Wolverine. And everyone's like, yeah, it's Hugh Jackman. And I'm going, yeah, how do you know who he is now? This is so yeah, I would say the sets were beautiful. I really rate the tech crew. They were doing an amazing job. They were on point. They were great. The guy playing Smee, whose name I always forget, he also dueled as Mr. Darling, clearly because Christopher Walken could barely manage Hook. If you'd given him Mr. Darling as well, it would not have worked. So yeah, he was great. That was great. But after that, disaster, which I'm glad other people recognized. I was genuinely worried when I reviewed it that I'd be the only person saying bad things. I was like, yeah, I know I'm going to be picky.
Well. Yeah, I've run into that as well. People, because The Wiz certainly is something that a lot of people hold close to their hearts. I personally always preferred the stage play to the film because the film was not a good adaptation of the stage play. Thank you for the hearts. But The Wiz Live, which came out a year after Peter Pan Live on NBC. Now, I was really concerned after Peter Pan Live that they were going to botch it. Mm-hmm. Not an unfair worry, I think. And there were certainly things about it that were not perfect. But in terms of adaptations of The Wiz, I think it's the best one we have on camera so far.
I'm really glad they kept going. I'm glad they looked at everything that went wrong the previous year and went, how do we not do that? Like, because that's something I never want to put people off with. I'm like, just because I'm saying you did this wrong, that doesn't mean that you can't still do it better.
100%.
That's something I have to learn to be fast. I have to get over that, so...
And somebody just brought up about a question that I get all the time about The Wizard of Oz, and I'm sure you have myths about Peter Pan that you get all the time. Did anybody actually get SA'd on the set of The Wizard of Oz? We have absolutely no credible evidence of that at all. So I would say no, because I'm a historian and I go based on what we can document and prove. No. It went from an interview that Judy Garland did on a 1967 episode of the Jack Paar television show, in which she made a joke about Munchkin asking her to dinner, which got spun out, as these stories do, into this graphic tale of woe, which it was not. So Yeah, so no, I have no evidence that I've ever come upon that actually says that. And somebody else
nice.
just asked, yeah, I know that's kind of, but you know, this is one of those things. Peter Pan and the Wizard of Oz are so deeply ingrained in our general mythos that all these things kind of, you know, sprout up about it. And somebody just asked about Hook. I know you have very strong feelings about Hook, and I feel like we all do.
The character or the movie? Because there's two separate answers to that question.
Somebody asked about the movie Hook. And before we go into this, guys, we all love Robin Williams. That's a given.
We love Robin Williams. This was just not the part for him, and I'm sorry. He could
so
play
tell
a great
us why it doesn't work. Explain to the people from a professional perspective why this movie doesn't work.
From a Peter Pan hobbyist and obsessionist point of view, I haven't filmed today, so I haven't been able to say that 20 million times in one take. Hi, you're Peter Pan hobbyist and obsessionist. Sometimes if I look really pleased with myself, it's because I did it in one take, and that doesn't always happen very much. Very often you'll be doing your intro, you know, be like, oh, I'm going to answer this question. Hi, I can't say words anymore. I've said it 20. Nope, it's gone. Never mind. Right, carrying on. So yeah, I love Robin Williams, and I would never tell anyone what to think. You can enjoy this movie. It can be nostalgic. That's absolutely fine. Again, much like Peter Pan, the sets were amazing. It was beautiful, which kind of makes it worse because it looked beautiful, but the plot. In a sentence, I don't like the movie Hook because it took the character of Peter Pan and the entire point of him, which is he's the kid who never grows up. The one kid, I mean, there are other characters historically, but the whole point of him is he is the child who never grows up. And they went, hey, let's make him grow up, which I just don't, like, what's the point? Then it's not the character then. It's, you know what I mean? Like, I feel, but somebody did save it in the comment section of one of my videos where I was ragging on Hook for the 50th or 60th time. And they said, what if the movie Hook was about Robin Williams playing a lost boy? And I said, well, there you go. You've just saved it. You've just saved it. It's someone who's forgotten that they were a lost boy and someone comes to take their kids. It can be Hook. I could get into the whole Hook would be deceased thing, but we're going to forget that for the sake of continuity. And, you know, they get their kids taken. And then the movie's saved. And then the guy playing Rufio could play Peter Pan because I've been saying it for years. I love the character of Rufio, but he would have been really good as Peter Pan. So
yeah, he was kind of the embodiment, yeah, for sure. And they were kind of making him like an imposter, but he kind of was perfect. And you're right. What if Toodles, having lost his marbles, having spent his whole life searching for the meaning, what does this mean? You know, and then he finally figures it out, you know? That would have been brilliant. Yeah. But then what would Robin Williams have done?
Exactly. And I think that's the point. It was a movie essentially like for Robin Williams. I feel like it was definitely like, I think it came out just before I was in existence, but I can't comment because I don't know. But I feel like, yeah, he was definitely very big and he needed to be in stuff. I love him in lots of other things. It's just that this was a character that he and many other adults should not have been playing it, especially when it's in a movie. On stage, yes, he's played by adults. Obviously, it's a stage production. You know, we get it more nowadays with like Matilda, but even then, it's so much work for a kid. And, you know, on a stage, it's fine, absolutely fine. Kathy Rigby is my favorite Peter Pan, always will be, has never been toppled ever. I go on about her every day. But like in a movie, when you can see in such detail, I don't see why you would cast him a lot older than necessary. So yeah, that never sat right with me. But if you enjoy it, you can enjoy it as a movie. I am merely giving you the factual.
Now, I'm getting comments. Somebody just asked, has there ever been a Peter Pan Wizard of Oz crossover story or any actors that appeared in both? And I'm trying to rack my brain for thoughts on whether or not.
I can find out.
Go to the reference books. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't remember any Oz actors that were also in adaptations of Peter Pan. No, and somebody also just asked, what about the Peter Pan and Chip and Dale? And while you're looking, I would love to comment on that because I saw the whole movie. My daughter loved it.
You have thoughts. I love that.
I do have thoughts because I know a lot about Disney history and I know what happened to Bobby Driscoll, who played Peter Pan in the Disney version. And if you guys don't know, it's a tragic story. He essentially grew up, outgrew being a Disney kid. Disney dumped him, and he ended up a drug addict and in an unmarked grave that his mother discovered a year after he died. When you see the movie Chip and Dale, spoiler alert, shut it off if you don't want to hear. Peter Pan is the villain, and he basically tells the story of how he outgrew his role and turned to a life of crime to make ends meet. And it was such a scary juxtaposition of what happened to the real Peter Pan actor that I was uncomfortable watching it, knowing it. And I was wondering if that was the basis of this character or not. It's so uncanny and so on the nose. I don't imagine it could have possibly not been on purpose.
Yeah. That, to be fair, that when I heard about that unsettled me more. Like, when I talked about it in a video, I was like, yeah, clearly this is being done for cheap laughs, like, and it's Disney, and their version of Peter was already so far from canon anyway that I just sort of went, yeah, Disney are doing what Disney does, okay. I'm not going to watch it, so it doesn't really bother me if no one had mentioned it in the comments, and I felt really bad. I had no idea who Chip and Dale were. I was like, and I looked them up and I was like, are they from Bambi? Are they the background characters from Bambi? Because they look like little squirrels. And the comments came at me. They were like, how do you know? I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't grow up with the Disney Channel. I had 3 channels. I didn't have this. I'm sorry. And they were like, what? So that caused more controversy than any Peter Pan opinion I've ever had, to be honest.
The Disney afternoon is sacred, man. The Disney afternoon is sacred.
Right. I didn't know. I didn't have that. Sorry about that. But I won't be watching the movie. I don't think it's for me. And when I heard all of that about, what they were doing to him as an actor, I was like, well, this is not okay. And it's not even in terms of Peter Pan anymore. It's in terms of a real person, much as I believe he's real and feel like he's real. This is a genuine actor who's had a horrible life. Like, it reminded me a lot of what happens to Disney stars nowadays, when they sort of come out of the Disney bubble and they try to break out and then things can go a myriad of different ways. I was like, it felt very, I don't know what the right word is, unsavory, I guess. I was like, of all the stories you could have told, you chose to go with this very close to home one. Like, so that's what I would say I didn't like about that movie, knowing what I do. So there is actually a reference to Judy Garland in my book.
Really? May I hear?
She has not been in Peter Pan, but Kathleen Nolan, who was playing Wendy in about, 1951. Later than that. Well, at some point, they were performing at the Palace Theatre where Judy Garland was making her first legendary comeback, and Judy met her and allowed her to sing a bunch of her songs and came and watched her at some point, apparently.
Wow.
It was known as the Palace Medley, and Garland situated herself in different locations of the theatre so she could see how effective the staging was, and apparently Kathleen was allowed to sing Over the Rainbow, and so that is a connection that Judy Garland has with Peter Pan, I guess.
Wow. And if you guys don't know, the Palace Medley it's when she goes, so I hope you'll understand my wonder is real, 'cause vaudeville's back at the palace, and I'm on the bill. Oh my gosh. So there is some crossover. And actually somebody just pointed out Once Upon a Time technically also has crossover between
I'm sure there's been other, character crossover things. We could talk about Once Upon a Time, I suppose. That's fun.
All right, hold on.
I'm just gonna scroll the comments and see if there's any any not about Once Upon a Time, because this is, to be fair, I nearly made it. That video where people do that thing of like, a question I get asked all the time, and my response just being like, I can't remember what the audio is, and I so nearly made it for Once Upon a Time, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it, because then they'll ask more, and I'm going, I haven't watched it in a hot minute, but I did film there was a draft sitting in my draft of me reacting to the Wikipedia of Peter Pan in Once Upon a Time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's all take a breath. I understand there's huge fans of Once Upon a Time, and I get it. It's basically, if you don't know what it is, and I don't know who doesn't know it, but if you don't, it's been off the air for a while. It's basically if Disney wrote fan fiction about all its own properties, and some properties they don't own. It's like the alternate universe fan fiction versions for all the Disney canons, plus some other people that are kind of copyright infringement, but not really, because they're using only public domain stuff. So they have seasons with different arcs and different characters. Peter Pan gets one, and when they made Oz the Great and Powerful, they tied the Wizard of Oz into it too, vaguely.
Vaguely. That's what I would go with for Once Upon a Time. It's all vagaries with the same character names.
But Hook is a main character.
And Hook has his own audio where it's like, oh, I watched Once Upon a Time for the hot guy. What, Hook? Yeah, him. Totally not Rumpelstiltskin. I keep hearing that audio and I'm going, okay.
Yeah, and Rumpelstiltskin is also referred to as the crocodile, pretty much from the moment Hook steps on screen.
It's a time. It's a whole creative time. I would like to see the writer's room. I feel like there'll be so much red string going in so many directions to keep track of like what's going on. Like,
yeah, Rumpelstiltskin alone is Rumpelstiltskin, the Beast, the crocodile. Who else does he represent?
Like his resume is just like so many things.
Yeah, I mean, at least the Oz storyline is more through line. I feel like the Peter Pan references kind of go bananas. Because again, they didn't do as much with the Wizard of Oz because they had to dance carefully around copyright issues with the MGM film. They could only use stuff from the books, and which is why, in my opinion, the only thing about Zelena that kind of bothers me is the shade of green that she is, because it's trademarked Margaret Hamilton's particular shade of green. So she looks almost oily and the makeup looks weird and unnatural. I don't know why. And the whole green with envy thing. Why can't one villain ever have agency over their own evil? Yeah. It's annoying.
No, just you can choose to go evil. That's fine. Yeah. And those are the villains I like. That's where I like villains. I really like a good villain origin story. I like knowing why people made the decisions and understanding it. When you get that moment of going, oh, I might have made the same decision. Or, relatable villainy. We like it. I'm just scrolling the comments now, and there's loads of stars. Thank you for stars; those are really cool. Was Nana the dog in other versions? Yes, Nana the dog is canon. Canon? That's a word. Nana the dog's been in it since the beginning. Canonical content right here. Nana the dog. She should be in every version because she's amazing. We love Nana the dog. She is a beautiful, massive Newfoundland dog. If you've ever seen a Newfoundland or a St. Bernard, really huge, foofy dogs. Partly because it was based on J.M. Barrie's dog, and partly because the actor on screen, or on the stage rather, could then, play her in a massive suit. So,
yeah, is that part of Finding Neverland true, where they were like trying different methods of being able to?
Yes, as far as I've been able to read, because obviously I don't know more into the story, but I love the play lore as well. But yeah, there was some rewrites and stuff even until the opening night, which was then pushed back a little bit because various things happened. So. Yeah, there were various things, and Nana had to. One of the directions, because one of the reasons I love the play so much is because you can read the stage directions that just no one else will see, and the audience will never know, but it gives you so much lore. And one of them is, at some point it says, if Nana does everything that a human would do on all fours, except when a human would be on all fours when she stands on her hind legs. And it's just like, you would never notice. At any point, you'd never know that. But it's just so sweet. I love it. I love that whimsical storytelling. I think, yeah, it clicked with my brain. That was why I really liked the story. Because the book particularly and the play, it does my attention all over the place thing. It doesn't stay in one place too long. And I really get with that. It helped with the attention all over the place all the time. So yeah. And the lore is great. I love all of that. Hello. Hi. Sorry, new people arriving. Hi, people. Hi. Yes, I know Rumpel is Peter's son. There is a video of me reacting to finding out that piece of information somewhere in my drafts.
Yeah. Oh, when that gets revealed. I feel like Peter Pan often gets there's this weird lingering sense that he's a predatory character with, the way he kidnaps children. And that's so easy to tip into like really inappropriate territory, which I don't think was the intentionality at all.
No. And a lot of people have been unfortunately publishing books recently on that very theme, and thankfully I've been tagged in a lot of them, so I've got to see them. It's been great. Please keep tagging me. It's great. I love being tagged and stuff, but I then get to take the book and go, hey guys, this is why you shouldn't read this. Don't read this. It's not good. Like, no, don't make the Eternal Child into a SA predator, please. That's completely inappropriate. If you need to, there are other characters that you can do that with, but not the Eternal Child. That's my one protective stance. Putting adult themes onto an Eternal Child. I'm just Of all
it's
the
odd.
characters in all the world, why the Eternal Child? It will never
Yeah.
make sense to me.
There I feel like Wicked by Gregory Maguire, the novel, and turning that innocent story on its head, it was also very graphic and adult in nature, and I feel like that kind of sparked a wave of similar texts and similar thought
Mm.
processes about these fairy tales, picking apart lore and trying to reimagine them in a more adult way to kind of give it an
Mm-hmm.
edge. But I feel like some of it, even in Wicked, just goes too far just for
Yeah.
comfort. And I get it, it's meant to have shock value, but does it add anything to the story?
Yeah. That's my thing. If what you're adding is either taking things away or twisting it so much that it's basically not the original story, then I get very, why don't you just write your own? Are you just using these place names and these characters for clout? Like when like a lot of Peter Pan retellings, adaptations, whatever. I just sit there and go, okay, if you weren't using these character names, we would have no idea this was the same. And at that point I go, you only use these names because you thought no one would read this or watch this if you used your own idea, didn't you? Which makes me sad because I feel like people should have more belief in themselves than that, you know. And because you're taking someone else's work, I'll never get my head around that. You are quite literally taking someone else's work with or without permission, whatever copyright laws are, and they're different in the UK. Over here, the laws are really weird on that with Peter Pan in particular. But like, if you're gonna take someone else's character and world, do something good with it or make your own. Be inspired by something. That's great, but yeah, I feel like it can get pushed too far, especially with shock value. Like, but if it's just to make people shocked, then why bother? And also, I'll say it and I'll say it again: making Peter Pan dark is not new. He's been dark since the beginning. Like, just go read the original story, man. It's in there. But yeah, I get this a lot with people in my comments going, "Oh, but what if someone did it dark, like Once Upon a Time?" And I'm going, "It's been done. It's called the original story."
Yeah. And I feel like Oz also has plenty of dark elements without having to add things in. I mean, Dorothy has a body count by the end of the first book.
Right.
So,
Right.
straight up murdered two people. So, and the Scarecrow and Tin Man and Lion also take out a number of creatures on the way. So, it already has inherent darkness, but not in a cruel way. It's a very gently told story, but, not shielding from, the dangers in their land and their world. So I feel like adding more to it, like for example Emerald City, which was an NBC show, I actually like it very much because it does bring a lot of book lore into it, but what it does is it ages up Dorothy to an adult, and it's a dark retelling. It was a primetime 9 p.m. show, and a lot of mothers like sat their kids down in front of it like, oh, it's a Wizard of Oz show, and Dorothy got waterboarded by the Munchkins in the first episode. So shock value to the nth degree.
That was Game of Thrones before it was Game of Thrones.
Correct. Game of Thrones, Aztec.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So yeah, see,
shock
value. Does it add anything? Is it necessary? Do you want to just write a horror movie? Is that what you want to do? Do you want to just go write a horror movie? Like, sometimes I want to sit down with people writing things and just go, "Are you okay? Like, do we need to? Should we have a conversation?"
But you know why? It's because my thought process on this is that Peter Pan and the Wizard of Oz have been told so many times that creators are afraid to do what's been done. So the thought process for them is probably like, oh, I have to do something so new that it's shocking and has never been seen before. Well, where do you go? You either go more cutesy and kid-friendly or more adult. I think, I don't know if you've seen the miniseries Tin Man starring Zooey Deschanel, but that was, for me, a healthy balance. It was telling it in a new way without having to shock the audience into being excited about it. It was not for kids, but it wasn't so graphic that kids couldn't. My kid has watched it. So I feel like tellings like that, and the 2003 adaptation of Peter Pan also had dark elements, but was certainly still kid-friendly in the same kind of way.
Yeah.
Although that one had problems too.
That one had problems too. People hate
when I talk about that. Can we talk?
We can talk about that, but people seem to hate that almost as much as when I say I hate Hook. Like, it gets me so much flack. It's like equal in the comments. Like, oh man, yeah. The 2003 Peter Pan movie, which forever in my head is now known as the 2003 Peter Pan movie because of the comments I get. Like, what about the one from 2000 and whatever? And I'm going, it's 2003. It's like, what about Jason Isaacs from 2001? It was 2003. I did a whole review. Go My first line is, go check out my YouTube channel. I did a whole thing. My camera work wasn't as great. It was like a year ago, but the comments I'm making are still valid. My hair wasn't as great, but okay. I should redo it. But like the movie was great, and I love Jason Isaacs. I think he is my favorite Captain Hook so far because I love everything that they did, and I go on about his Eton School tattoo a lot. Because it was one of those bits where they show that they've read the lore, but used it in a good way. Some of the comments I had about the movie Hook were they clearly read bits of the stage play, but then they'd sort of twisted it and used it in a way that was wrong, and that made it worse for me. I was like, I'd rather you just not read it at all rather than trying to shoehorn stuff in. But like in the 2003 one, Hook had an Eton School tattoo because he'd been to that school, and I watched it and I took many still shots, and then I looked it up and went, I'm right. This is amazing, like I was not looking at, because a lot of people are going, oh, daddy, with Jason Isaacs. That's what I get in the comments a lot, like, oh, he was and I'm going, that's good for you. But when he's shirtless, I'm looking at his tattoo. I'm like, turn around. I need to see the, and like, that was what I was doing in that scene in the cinema. Like, wait, what's that? Wait, no, turn around, come back, no, ah! I was great to go to the cinema with, but yeah, my main issue with that movie is that they weakened Peter Pan's character by making him require Wendy's kiss at the end, which is just the entire opposite of the character. It's almost as opposite as making him grow up, essentially. He doesn't require that. It's not something that was necessary. It was very weirdly done, and the whole "Pan, you're turning pink" is a line I'll never get over coming out of Hook's mouth. And they ruined my favorite line as well, which was very sad for me, which is the to die will be an awfully big adventure. Huge important moment. Again, I've gone on about this in many YouTube videos, but yeah, they ruined that moment. So while it looks great, and Jeremy Sumpter was a great Peter Pan, a little bit too human, but overall he was great, and he was like 12, so he was great. The whole cast was great. Everything was great, except for like those two big moments that just I was like, you were so close, so close.
And the dancing scene where they're dancing and the fairies are all around them feels like such a teenage moment where they're arguing about their relationship status. Like, I'm ready to go FBO. Well, I'm not, Wendy, okay? Slow it down. Pump the brakes. I'm not ready yet to go.
I think I sort of incorporated that into the kiss moment. Like, it's all just one big smush for me. Like, it looked so pretty. I get what they were doing, because they play it being mother and father. But I think what they did in that movie was they said in dialogue what in this original story is said in between the lines. Like, they're not understanding each other, but they had it so blatant. Like, what do you think about hate and love? I've never felt it. Like, that's not a line Peter's ever said, kind of thing. It's more of a Wendy was never that. She never said it outright. She was too sweet for that. She would never have said it like that. It was well shot. It was well filmed. I get what they were doing, but yeah, it built into the whole kissy thing, and that was just a bit. And also, Tinkerbell flirts with a parrot. Like, what was this? This is screen time. We could use something else.
What do we think Wendy and Dorothy would have to talk about if they got together? Not inconceivable. I mean, if we think that Neverland and Oz are on alternate planes of the universe, they could meet at some point. I mean, Dorothy ends up going everywhere, so
yeah. And what sort of year is The Wizard of Oz? Is it set in a particular year, or is it sort of like timeless?
Well, it was published in 1900, and at the time it was contemporary. So Dorothy would have been about 8 or 9 years old in 1900. She goes to Oz where she stops aging and spoiler alert for the books, if you haven't read the books, Dorothy does end up moving to Oz in book 6 and then stops aging around the age of like 11 or 12.
I approve of this decision.
So they would have some stuff to talk about. They would be almost contemporaries.
Yeah, Peter Pan was 1904 and Wendy was like 10, 12. So yeah, they could just cross an ocean. It'd be fine. I think they'd get along. Because Wendy is a very nurturing, sweet, kind to everyone person, which I hate when people change that. Wendy is not a character in need of agency. She is perfectly fine the way she is and very happy to be a nurturing, motherly person. There is nothing wrong with that. She is lovely as she is. Moving on. If you want a badass babe, we have Tinkerbell. But like, they would 100%, Wendy would 100% talk to Dorothy and would probably be absolutely delighted that she managed to wrangle all the guys into behaving and following her. She'd probably be like,
oh, and if you could just give me a hand.
mm-hmm.
Dorothy would have the more.
So glad Wendy had a daughter.
Dorothy just dropped a house on Captain Hook, and everything would have been fine.
Oh, would have been amazing. Would have been so good. And she had her own house. They built her own house. She could have just, it would have been great. We'll do that crossover. Wendy gets taken off in a tornado and drops a house. It'll be great. It'll be great.
Oh my gosh. Why hasn't that been done? You guys,
right?
why hasn't that been done?
People are looking for new things to do. Do this. Or to be fair, when we talk about like people wanting to, not do something that's been done, to be honest, and I don't know if you might say the same thing, no one's ever actually done Peter Pan. Like, they're all so worried about making it new and original. No one has ever done the actual story as it is in the book or the play. No one's ever done it. They've all changed things or taken things up. They've all changed it. So if you want to do something new...
The world's been divided, and I feel like all corporations want to invest in safe bets. So we know that everyone knows the Disney Peter Pan. Therefore, we cannot stray too much from the formula of the Disney Peter Pan. Everyone knows the 1939 film, The Wizard of Oz, so we cannot stray too far from the formula of the 1939 film. Meanwhile, there were 14 Oz novels, and all this source material that no one's ever tapped into. Some, but not all, not nearly all. Yeah. For the same is true for Peter Pan.
Yeah. And I feel the same with like movies like the Narnia Chronicles. People tend to do like the two that everyone remembers, and then they might go into the Dawn Treader, and then they don't do anything else. But actually, you can make a really kick-ass like Netflix series out of the whole Narnia series. The Silver Chair is my favorite one, and it comes right at the end, and no one knows about it because it's right at the end, and no one gets there. Like, there's so much cool original stories, like even Alice in Wonderland. I loved that as a kid, and I read it and went, well, that's not the version everyone knows from the Disney movie. Funnily enough, I should have guessed after I'd been obsessed with Peter Pan. I was like, I'm going to go check. And I read it and went, yeah, not surprised about that at all. Like, I think people, they do get quite scared of diverging from what people know. But that's a good thing, guys.
Yeah, don't be afraid to do new and exciting. And Netflix really should do a fairy tale series where they break down larger story arcs like Oz, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, like really go into it. The problem with Alice is that she's more of a passive character where things kind of happen around her and she's observing. So it makes for, I don't know if you saw the live version they did for television in 2000 starring Whoopi Goldberg and...
I did. I didn't see it live, but I did see it totally on YouTube.
It's a very good
the DVD.
book. It is a wonderful adaptation of the book, but it's boring if you don't know the story because it's just like, oh, here she goes into another thing quietly. Hey, look at this. More stuff. It's weird. Okay, moving on. It's not like, she's really not doing anything. So, and they tried to add a moral, but it didn't really pan out. So, see what I did there?
There are some stories that just like they don't need a moral. Not everything needs a moral, I would argue I don't think Peter Pan has a moral. Alice in Wonderland doesn't really have a moral, and that's fine. It can be a good story. To be honest, the best version of Alice in Wonderland I've ever seen was the ballet. I saw that. It was like it wasn't national, it was like a touring company, and it was great. And Alice, because she could be much more expressive and stuff, that was great. That was amazing. Coincidentally, the Peter Pan ballet was also amazing. I feel like how come they can get it across that like the TV shows and the movies can't,
And the Wizard of Oz ballet was also incredible. I really do feel like ballet is such an expressive art form. And you're right, the Alice in Wonderland ballet was that Mad Hatter tap dance / ballet number was nuts.
So just so in character that you didn't believe that it hadn't happened in the book. You're just like, yeah, this is you 100%. And there is now a Russian musical as well, which I actually cosplayed the rabbit from at one point. I haven't managed to see much of it because I had to teach myself a bit of Russian so I could search for the right hashtag. That was a time. And my YouTube was full of Russian adverts for a while. It was great. But I managed to track down the theater and find some like footage people had shot. Looks great. Looks insane. But looks really great. Like, so, go check that one out if you fancy learning some Russian. Going on your YouTube and finding that. Looks really cool. So yeah.
Be prepared to be contacted by the Kremlin, though, just so you know.
The person who is watching, the FBI person watching your internet is going to be a bit sus for a while, but you'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, we have yet to have full versions of either of our stories, but one thing that we both have in common is an excellent Saturday morning cartoon. The Wizard of
Yes, we
Oz
do.
90 took the 1939 film. It was an officially licensed MGM version of in cartoon form, but it really did expand the universe and accurately portray the characters. And I feel like the Peter Pan Saturday morning cartoon starring Tim Curry as Captain Hook, which in my
Oh,
opinion, his vocal performance,
yes.
chef's delicious.
Tim Curry can do no wrong. No, no wrong.
Tim Curry as anything, I will take it.
Everything. Everything. Tim Curry is everything. Just yes.
But what do you think about that? Do you think it did justice to the real Peter Pan?
I feel like when I talk about like the version of the Neverland I'd most like to go to, that was my second one. I think it's called Peter Pan and the Pirates, the Tim Curry one. I watched that obsessively as a kid, and the first thing I remember thinking was, Peter Pan's in autumn colors because I, obsessively read the novel, and I went, oh my god, he's not in green, and he's got dark hair and a ponytail. Yes, I was like, it's not just this because I was a ginger kid, but I was very strongly distancing myself from the Disney Peter Pan because I wasn't allowed to watch it anymore with friends on video because I would comment too much. So yeah. I think the first thing I shouted that made everyone go shut up was it's on the wrong hand. Well, Wendy said it's on the left hand. Well, she's wrong. And it was a time. But I love Peter Pan and the Pirates. It definitely strayed from like a lot of the canon, especially in this one weird episode at the end when Peter wishes himself into a grown-up, or I can't remember how it happened. He like pretended or wished himself into a grown-up and then had to change back. I can't quite remember. That was odd. But they were probably, clutching for plot points at that point, so it was fine. But as a world, I really liked that they explored it. Like a lot of people seem to think that the only things there are is like the Lost Boys hideout and the pirate ship and the Mermaid Lagoon, but it's a whole ass island. There's mountains and forests and lakes and seasons and things all over the place. So that's what I love. They went all over the place. They saw all the different parts of the island. That made me really happy. That was very, very cool. So not completely canon, but 100% forgivable for most of the things that they did. And Tim Curry.
And Tim Curry.
And Tim Curry.
The Wizard of Oz cartoon from 1990 did the exact same thing. It explored all these different lands within the land of Oz, which is absolutely how it was in the book. And they brought book elements in, but quietly, masked in MGM fun because they still sang, "We're off to see the wizard." They still kept those recognizable elements from the movie to bring kids in.
Song.
They basically had the voice actors copy the exact performances of Jack Haley, Burt Lahr, Ray Bolger, and Judy Garland, and it was so engaging. And we only got 13 episodes. How many episodes of the Peter Pan cartoon did we get?
I feel like there was about the same. I feel like there was 14 because I totally didn't watch the whole thing in a YouTube playlist the other week. Not me. Couldn't be me. Not adult me. No, definitely not. I think there was like 14, 16. There was like, just one run, which is probably good because I sometimes feel like shows that are great, they need to stop while they are great, So I'm glad that what we got was good, and I'm glad that what we got was good. That
Saturday morning cartoons had a very specific purpose at that time, which was to sell toys. And I think once that purpose was served, or once it was proven that that wasn't going to happen, once we knew it wasn't the next Transformers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it was Axville for Saturday morning cartoons. I think today adults are engaging much more with the art form of animation, and so those maybe would have had a chance to flourish a bit more in today's market. Yeah. But given the time, again, I'm just so glad we got them because they add a lot to the fandom.
Yeah, it feels so sad to say sometimes. I'm just glad we had it at all. That it's kind of sad, but it's also positive. I'm glad we had it because otherwise it would just be the Disney thing, which would be sad. Because much as I like some things, and I like the positivity that comes from a lot of Disney. So I don't like hate all Disney, but I really dislike the way that they do adaptions sometimes, and I don't know a lot about a lot of other stories, but I can appreciate other people like us who are maybe Cinderella obsessionists, or people who know all about other things. They're probably equally as frustrated because that's the version everyone knows. And I remember being really shocked when lots of people didn't realize Peter Pan was a book. I just thought that was common knowledge. Even if you hadn't read it, I thought everyone they'd know it was a book, if nothing else. Disney does fairy tales. Fairy tales are books. I haven't read it, but it must be a book. I remember being shocked by that, So
I remember the exact same feeling. And most people don't know that Oz is a series of books for sure. They might know that there's a book, but the fact that there are 14 of them, just by the original author alone, they go, what?
Yeah.
Why?
I learned that from you. I learned that from your TikTok content. I was like, I'm learning.
Too. I'm learning so much about Peter Pan. It's one of the things I love about this forum, all of this bite-sized information that you can process and remember, and really interesting stuff that you're like, yes, I can't wait to come back for more. And I feel like there is, we need more creators who are talking passionately about, these niche, weird, and geeky things, because it's making me feel validated.
Yeah, right. I love it. Someone asked me in a comment the other day, they said, oh, so, is the Peter Pan fandom quite big? I didn't realize it was like so active. And I was going, I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea. Because I grew up when, like I said, like it was you, your mates, and whoever you could call on the phone. And I hated ringing people, so never. So I was I like, there's a lot of forums that are sometimes active on Peter Pan sites, but like, in general, I'm not the person to ask because I have no idea. I want to reach out and look for that kind of community, but I wouldn't know. And I'm glad that it's out there though, and the internet is a wonderful, magical thing.
Yeah, very active Oz community and Oz collector community specifically. There's lots of Facebook groups. There's the International Wizard of Oz Club. You too can join at ozclub.org. And there are, I didn't realize when I was younger doing it on my own, but once the internet became a thing and once I joined the club, and especially now with Facebook, we started Facebook groups back in the day that now, if you're like, oh, darn, I'm looking for this one specific collectible, people are like, oh, I know where you can get that. It's here. Yeah. And they'll send the link. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's the world is getting smaller in a lot of ways because we can communicate so easily. And I love that. I mean, I know a lot of people are weary of technology and are weary of social media, but anything can be a weapon if you're holding it right, but it can also be a tool for good. So, keep putting good out there because you're amazing. Yeah. It's true. And I can see that you're recording comments, but stay with me. And if you agree with me, send some likes to this video because this creator right here is a gem on this app. Should we dive into the Disney?
We could. Also this one. Most of my comment followers are already following this one, but if you are not, I'm going to assume that I'm pointing in the right direction. Whatever direction on my camera, you're over here. But just in case, this creator, so cool. Wherever the OzVlog happens to be right now, go follow. Even if you don't care about the Wizard of Oz, because there's loads of people who don't care about Peter Pan who follow me. If you can do it for me, you can do it for OzVlog. Also, I did start a backup account because TikTok started being really weird processing my videos. So there is an account that's literally just called Peter Pan Facts. It is me. Don't worry. It is me. There's nothing on it yet, but it's just there lurking in case. Because I'm kind of scared that if I start posting under just the Peter Pan Facts, that all of the views on my cosplays will disappear. But I might need to bite the bullet. I might need to bite the bullet because I need to.
And a lot of people commented that this is happening all over. TikTok also flagged a couple of my videos incorrectly. So, because I make all family friendly content. So, my backup account is TheOzVlog 2. That is my only backup account. There are a couple of people who've stolen my face and have put it on other accounts. That's not me. The only one that is me is TheOzVlog 2. So, you were one of the people who won the Judy perfume. Isn't it amazing? Yes. Thank you for letting me know. That's awesome.
So good. Oh my God, it looks so cool.
It smells so delicious, and I'm gonna make a whole video about the breakdown of what it smells like. Stay tuned for that.
I need verbal description. Paint me a word picture so I could just close my eyes and be like, yes, I can smell it.
Wait, it's coming. Somebody just wrote, if it's any consolation, Walt Disney himself didn't like the finished Peter Pan movie. Is that true?
I hope so. I did get tagged in a video the other day that I had to laugh at, and I was trying to be so nice because people tag me all the time and I can't always watch everything, and I sometimes get tagged a lot. So if I don't reply to people's comments, it's not because I don't appreciate the tag, it's just because I've probably been tagged 20 times that day, so I've seen it. But someone tagged me in someone else's video talking about the Disney Peter Pan, and the first sentence was a picture of Walt Disney, and it said something like, did you know that Walt Disney it was like he like really cared about the character of Peter Pan, and I just replied back in my comment just going, really cared, LOL, going like, if you really cared, why did you turn him into a complete, I can't say that word because there are kids watching, moronic meanie. There you go, that's the PG version. If you cared about him, why did you make him such a horrible person? I was like, I don't believe you. Well, Disney didn't care. I don't believe you. So I'm glad he didn't like the finished product. I am glad.
Well, I mean, the 1950s misogyny just drips off of Peter Pan, the Disney film, like in buckets.
So much. I say that about that movie a lot. The Disney version of Peter Pan made almost every single character either much more mean than they ever were or much more soppy and weak. And to be fair, most of the guys were made mean and most of the girls were made weak. And that's not who they were at all. So that frustrated me to no end, to just be like, no wonder people find Wendy annoying. This is what they have to base her on. Like,
yeah, like, and Tinkerbell checking her hips in the mirror.
I will never forgive that. Oh my god. It's no. Tinkerbell, as I did a whole video on this, Tinkerbell was curvy, like canonically curvy. I can't say. There's a French word for it. It's like embonpoint, something like that. It's literally in her description, which it meant like a bigger girl. It has various meanings over the years, but back in 1904 when it was written, it meant like buxom, curvy, a bigger girl, and that was a good thing. And it's like, yeah, Tinkerbell's not concerned. She rocks it. And she wears like low square cut leaf dresses, like yes, she is.
Get it?
We love Tinkerbell. Yeah. So yeah, Disney frustrates me a lot, but yeah, talk Disney. Let's
Let's talk about Disney taking fandoms and trying to Disneyfy them. When you wish because Austin Powerful similarly bastardized the story of Oscar Diggs, and James Franco absolutely destroyed his backstory. So Peter Pan, the Disney film, always rubbed me the wrong way, from the very, very inhumane portrayal of the Native American populations of North America to the fact that they're still in the dark ride. I don't know how that gets by.
No. And I like the boats in the dark ride. The boats are great. Flying through the air, that's great.
Yeah, the boats are great.
The other things, not so good. What we're flying past. Right.
You know, the ride is great, but they have kept some of the problematic elements. And the general feel of Peter Pan being a misogynist, like, get on with it, girl. Whereas in the original story, he was so poetic about how he spoke about girls and how girls are too clever to fall into their trams.
So sweet.
You know, it's such a stark. How did they get there?
Yeah, I need to know. I'm morbidly fascinated by the thought process that goes into people when they write stuff like that, and when they, you know, you're right, when they bastardize, when they change characters. And it wasn't like they made him better. They didn't think, oh, this is for kids, we're going to make him, you know, more heroic. I mean, they tried to make him more heroic, which is also something he's not. He's neither hero nor villain. He has his moments of both, but I argue he's down the middle kind of thing. But yeah, how did they get to that? I need this information. I need to know how that decision was made, especially considering there are claims that he was supposed to care about it and really looked into this and tried to get the rights to it for ages and stuff. Like,
and you know, it's easy to see how they came to Oz the Great and Powerful, because they started with a genuinely well-adapted story in the original script, and then Disney executives looked at this and went, well, how can we make this resemble the 1939 film more? And what they decided to do was basically scrap all of the original elements in favor of pulling on your nostalgia strings, a la, you know, going from the smaller ratio to the larger, going from black and white to color, incorporating a woman in a blue gingham dress that is supposedly Dorothy's mother. James Franco.
To be a mother, you have to wear the same outfit, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean, really. She wore ever on the farm. And they tried so hard to shoehorn all these crazy, weird, and similarly to Peter Pan, shoving romantic subplots where they do not belong. And just ruined it. just really destroyed it by
Yeah.
trying to make it fit this weird formulaic chosen one narrative that just is
Yeah.
totally unnecessary. Now, somebody just asked about Return to Oz, which is also a Disney film. Totally did bomb right. Chef's kiss. I love it. Have you seen that
Yeah.
one?
I think like once, like a while ago. So, and I don't remember hating anything, so therefore good impression made. But
Therefore, good. If I didn't hate it, it's
I did not hate it, therefore therefore it has the merit. Oh, Return to Neverland. So ironically, I think I prefer Return to Neverland to the original Disney Peter Pan. I remember watching it in the cinema for
oh,
one of my birthdays. I will not confirm how old I was when I watched it on the cinema for my birthday, but I watched it in the cinema on my birthday. Um, and I think I preferred it because everything that they did was, again, it wasn't canon, but because it was a sequel that they were making up, it didn't matter. So Jane, Wendy's daughter, does go to the Neverland. I don't like what they did with her character. They made her this weird, like, argumentative, prissy girl when actually Jane was very inquisitive and very excited, and her birth was written in history with a gold splash, kind of things like that. She was much more. She was more like Dorothy than the girl that they gave you. But you know, getting over that. Yeah, as a movie, I think I preferred that just because it wasn't canon, but it was better than the original. It annoyed me less than the original,
it
and I
went
was still a picky child when I watched it. So
it went there with the World War II references. It kind of tried not to pull punches about the bombing of London and how
yeah,
scary children and um being a person who lives in the UK, I mean, I don't know if all of that hits home for you when you see things like that reference, but we don't really talk about that very much. Not as much as we should probably, especially here in the United States. It's not a history that we talk about as much. But certainly Britain's efforts to stop the Nazis were instrumental in saving the world from fascism. So thank you very much. And the bravery shown by Londoners will never be forgotten by those who know that story. So I'm glad they incorporated some of it, though it was a bit distracting.
It was an odd choice, and like I am very bad at dates in history, but like because it was the World War, historically wise, the timeline wasn't too far off. Like Wendy was around like 1904, 1912 kind of thing. Like so World War time, that historically it was accurate for lack of a better word. So time wise, they I appreciate that they probably thought, hey, it'll be around this time. This will be happening. We can't ignore that. Let's use this. But it did take up quite a lot of the movie, but yeah, it was in there and it was different to the original.
We're being asked what scene at the end with Peter and Wendy. Do you have thoughts on that?
The scene at the end, which one? The scene at the end of Return to Neverland, or the scene at the end of
Yes.
the what happens at the end of Return to Neverland? Can I remember? Does he just, is it when he's bringing Jane back?
He
Wait.
brings Jane back. When adult Wendy is peering out the window, she turns
Mm-hmm.
her back. They're gonna miss each other, but then, and I think it would have been more poetic if they hadn't had a direct interaction where he's like, "Whoa, you've changed. How you doing? Hit me up." Um, you
No,
know,
they had Hook for that.
it is a sweet moment. But I think it would have been as sweet if they just kind of, if he had just kind of had a like, "Oh, it's Wendy," and then left. But what I mean, I don't know if you remember, but it is one of the
When you're saying it, I can vaguely remember it from the movie now. And yeah, I think it would have made more impact if they had either just missed each other, because that was what he did a lot. Like he came back for Wendy like twice, essentially. He was supposed to come back every year. He came back the first year, and then he missed a year and came back, and then Wendy never saw him again until she was a grown up. So he came back twice for Wendy, and then forgot, and then came and took Jane instead because Wendy was a grown up. So, and he didn't know any time had passed because he he is the forgetful the forgetful dumbass. That's who he is. Um, so I feel like it might have been more impactful for me, but I get because it was a kids movie. I think having them speak it for a kids movie, you kind of need the dialogue. You need the moment. Whereas for an adult audience, you can have a meaningful look or you can have a missed opportunity, and I think that would have meant more to me and to the original story. But for a kids audience, I think it made sense to have what they did. Um, and they do interact, to be fair, when he comes back, when Wendy's an adult. They do interact. But Wendy can't see him as well. That's something they could have played on, but you know, probably been a bit confusing to explain. But yeah, as you grow up, you can't really see him very well. Mrs. Darling couldn't see him very well. Hook couldn't see him when they were having their final fight. That's something people don't realize. Hook was basically fighting with his newly left, well, not newly left hand, but you know, his dominant hand was now a hook, and he was trying to fight, and he couldn't really see this kid, and it was like a mote of dust in the wind that was all glittery, like. So yeah, it was a difficult fight.
I knew that. I do not think I knew that.
You.
Y'all not alone. Captain Hook couldn't even see him. Okay, Captain clearly the superior swordsman then, because if he was fighting him off and couldn't even see him.
Right, yeah. It does say they were like evenly matched as well. Like, so yeah, 100%. If Peter couldn't fly, probably slightly less evenly matched. So don't tell him I said that.
How did it go from Eton College, which is, from what I understand, a place where the very privileged attend?
It is like, I don't know what, I guess the Yale of England, I guess. Do you have something above Yale? It's like Harvard and Yale. Yeah, so it's like that of England. And it was mostly for boys. It's opened up now, but it was originally like a boys' college and school. And he went there, and that was where he got instilled in him this, you've got to do good form and no bad and all this, and it jumbled up his brain. And then he hung out, went for well, we don't know if he was, but we know that he got to go to that school. And we know that he had an aunt. I think it was either an aunt or some family member like that. It wasn't a direct parent who got sent all his possessions after he died. And stuff like that. So I don't know if she sent him to that school or if Hook could have been an orphan. We don't know a lot about Hook. But we know that he went to that school when he was quite young, went up through it, and then went to some colleges and universities, studied in loads of libraries, and then went to sea, became Blackbeard's bosun, and became a pirate.
Do we have any movies just about Hook's origin story?
Right. That would be great. Instead, we get movies like Pan.
Oh, somebody's asking. That's the one with Hugh Jackman, right? How did we get there?
That's like one of the few times I've gone, Hugh Jackman, what are you doing, man? You're so much better than this.
He's just trying to make some money for the children's hospital.
Right. I was like, but I remember watching that movie and going, so you've got Blackbeard without a beard, and that's never explained. Like, at least in spoilers for Our Flag Means Death, people, at the very end, Blackbeard has no beard. But there's a reason for that. But in Pan, there is no reason. He's just called Blackbeard with no beard. I'm going. That whole movie was a bit of a train wreck for me, to be fair. And yes, train wreck. Wait,
somebody just said, because I've never seen this one. Please discuss Pan. Oh my God, Hook is nuts. What are they talking about?
Hang on. Hook is nuts. Like the character of Hook.
Yeah, in that movie.
Oh, okay. So you've got Hugh Jackman playing Blackbeard, and I say that loosely. Blackbeard. Like, I love pirates, but my pirate lore knowledge isn't very massive. Like, I've looked into bits and pieces, but I mostly know it in connotation, directed with Captain Hook. So yeah, you've got him doing this crazy. At one point, he sings a Nirvana song. It's really like, it's weird. It's like they had loads of cool ideas that they wanted to put into stuff, and they just didn't know how to string them all together. So they were like, let's force a Peter Pan subplot, and it was very weird. The guy playing Hook I can't remember what the actor's name was, but he was my pick for least favorite Hook because he's basically a cowboy. He's supposed to be like a young Hook, and he's got a cowboy. He looks like Dean Winchester from Supernatural with a cowboy hat, essentially. It's very weird. And he has like almost like a Texan accent, and he's like very droll, and he ends up like befriending Peter. Again, I say Peter because it's not Peter. Hook befriends Peter. And it's so weird. And I'm going, like, he doesn't have to have the Eton accent, but it is rather a large part of his backstory. I don't understand why he's been made into a cowboy. It's a mess. The movie is a mess. And I will point out, because it always gets brought up, the way they did Tiger Lily and her people was completely unacceptable in that movie. They cast a white actress, and she had, like, toggles in her hair. Like, as a costume, I can see what they were doing. And if you took the costume off her and put it into, like, a fashion magazine or something, I can see what they'd have been doing. It was basically like, it was like an explosion of wool, but putting that on a white actress and saying she's Tiger Lily, who then has a flirty relationship with Captain Hook. Yeah, no. Yeah, like, that whole movie was a train wreck from start to finish.
Somebody brought up, what do you think about a ship between Wendy and Hook? You
I think,
guys.
is it a pirate ship? Because that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, Wendy's a little girl,
Yeah,
and
I
he's a
will. It's
full-grown
that
man.
it's that thing of a grown ass man meeting someone as a child, and then it's like that romance is never gonna sit okay. Even if they meet again as adults, it's that whole teacher student thing. It's never gonna vibe very well, you know. And also Wendy goes home and gets very happily married and has at least one kid. So, it's a very odd ship. I don't know. I feel like sometimes people just are desperate to make ships, and I'm in the shipping community. I dabble on occasion, but to be honest, the story of Peter Pan, like, it doesn't need it. Mr. and Mrs. Darling, obviously, but pretty much that's it. That's it. There is nothing else required. But I think that's partly why I enjoyed the story when I was a kid, because I didn't like romance stories. I never connected to them. I was very glad that this didn't have it, and I got very bored of seeing big blockbuster movies and there was always a romantic subplot and I was going, why? We don't need
Well,
this. The movie would be exactly the same without it.
you
So
know, the Hollywood formula, the most popular things in Hollywood formulaic three-act structures include, um, a conflict, a resolution, a romance. These are very
mhm.
typical. Matter of fact, in The Wizard of Oz, in the original script treatments, Dorothy was aged up to be around 16 or 17 years old, and Ray Bolger's character was aged down to be about 17 or 18 years old, about to leave for college. And they had a very innocent romance between Dorothy and the Scarecrow in the Oz dream sequence, which then translated to the Hunk and Dorothy characters having a very innocent, and he asks her to write him when he leaves for college. And it's like this romantic goodbye. And it's implied that something will develop. Now, I've seen a couple
Yeah.
people already comments coming at me like, see, this is why it's inappropriate. Well, in this version, Dorothy is at an appropriate age to have a
Yeah.
love interest. Wendy is absolutely not. And of course, that subplot never came to fruition because when they fired the first director, Richard Thorpe, they took off her heavy makeup, her blonde wig, they aged her back down, and they did away with that subplot. A couple of things still snuck through to the final version, which is why she says, I think I'll miss you most of all at the end, and why you see that they kind of like are always touching each other, always kind of like elbowing each other, whispering in each other's ears. Like they're clearly supposed to be closer than all of the other friends.
Yeah.
But you can read that as a brother-sister relationship, as a best
Yeah.
friend,
I did.
as
Yeah.
just like, hey, I met you first, so I've known you the
Yeah.
longest. We're
That's what
besties.
I thought as a kid. Well, she met him first. It makes sense because we don't know how long she was with him before she met the others. It could have been a really long journey. I was like, I definitely picked up brother, sister. Oh, thank God I met you. This would have been a really lonely journey if I hadn't met you first, kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I
And
like that.
there's also this very small moment, you'll blink and you'll miss it, when they're panning in as the wizard is giving his speech. She's in the balloon, he's holding a rope, she puts her hand on his chest and he leans down and kisses it, and it's a very small like gesture, but it's so sweet, and again can be read as a friendship thing, as a brother sister thing. I was an adult when I first noticed it. I see something different every time I watch it, but I was like, oh, that's so adorable. Oh my gosh, I can't
Yeah,
stand it. Ray Bolger and Judy Garland were also close in real life.
yeah,
So I thought that was really sweet. But
I
yeah,
like.
shipping in general, it's a dodgy process. There's a lot of
Yeah,
fan fiction out there, guys. Be careful what you read. You may never unsee it.
yeah. I was persuaded to at some point do a YouTube video where I check out some of the Peter Pan fan fiction. I'm genuinely scared. It's on the very bottom of my YouTube list. I'm like, I'll get to that one day when I'm in a really good mood, when I can take it. Like,
Be
yeah,
a
because
fat study though.
yeah, shipping it. I love it quite a lot. There are like, I will, just to diverge completely, I will die on the Wolf Star Hill very happily any day of the week. But I'm not like as into the shipping community as a lot of other people are. Like I'm not very romantic as a person, except to my friends. My best friends will tell you I am very romantic. Anyone I have ever been with romantically will tell you the opposite. But like it's not really a thing I do. So yeah, like I have to be persuaded to a ship. But then if I like it, I'll be on it if I see it has merit and I think it works. But I think particularly with kids stories, it's almost unnecessary. Like why particularly when people are shipping like Wendy and Hook, or there was one, I don't want to talk about it much, but there is a story where Hook and Peter are shipped together. and it was one of the worst things I've ever read. And it
Ooh.
made me really uncomfortable in so many ways. Especially because of the representation they were trying to give at the same time. And as a person who was literally the target audience they were trying to represent, I was like, this is the worst way to do this. I just think it's unnecessary. You know, it's a kid's story. Let them be kids, you know, like, especially the kid who never stops being a kid. There will never be an excuse. Like, you can argue, yeah, when they rewrote the Dorothy script, yeah, they aged her up at least and aged the other guy down. They were teenagers. At least that makes sense. And Dorothy will grow up at some point. That makes sense. But like Peter Pan never will. So that's a hard no for me. Like, find another character, any other character, you know, like any other character in the entire world, but not this eternal, not human child, please.
Yeah, why can't we get a story about Wendy going back and like meeting her future husband and then like having Jane and like seeing their family
Yeah,
life? Interesting, and that would be a ship that would be okay.
yeah. And you could like
Somebody
she could try and explain her history, like, because she remembers more of the Neverland because she kept going back longer than the others. So you could have that moment of like, how do you explain to someone that this person might come to the window and might meet our child, you know? Like, that's a conversation because the husband isn't mentioned when he comes to visit Jane and stuff. So we don't know, he could be deceased, he could not. But like, that's a conversation that's really fun to explore. But people don't. They, you know, they don't. It's very sad.
somebody
They don't.
now somebody just asked me about one of your people, Andrew Lloyd Webber, took Oz and butchered it on stage. I don't know if you've seen Andrew Lloyd Webber's Wizard of Oz. It was unfortunate. He wrote some original songs that were really bad and gave the witch a very weirdly sexy dress, lots of décolletage and a very high slit. And her winky guards at one point whip off their coats and they're wearing red gingham sparkly shirts and they do a very sexy dance. Red Shoes Blues is good, and the ending song, No Place Like Home, very, very good. Everything else about it, dreadful. Do you think Andrew Webber will ever get his paws on Peter Pan?
I hope not. Now, I'll caveat this. Some of Andrew Lloyd Webber's work has been amazing when he's in collaboration with other people. Hot take, I do not mind Love Never Dies as a sequel. There, I said it. I think it has some good moments. And some of the songs are banging.
About like comedy? I feel like it works as satire.
I hate what they did with Raoul. I hate how they do that whole, oh, this person was really good in the original. How do we get rid of them? Let's make them a dramatic drunk. Like, I didn't like that. As a story, but as a, let's revisit these characters and see what happened in the future and the set. And just seeing Ramin as the Phantom and Sierra together, any excuse to see them together. But as a whole, I feel that Andrew Lloyd Webber is not the best musical composer. He is just one of the most well-known names. For example, Andrew Lloyd Webber did not do a lot of the best musicals, for example. And as someone who used to play in a band in school with my saxophone, and my sister used to play the flute, we would regularly have conversations when we were doing the musicals, because I was in the band for a musical at one point, and we did, I can't remember what musical it was, but it was an Andrew Lloyd Webber one, and you notice just how much of the music is repeated. Now, in musicals, yes, you have reprises and all that, but there comes a point, and you're playing it, and you're going, I've literally just played this song, and now it's a little bit faster. Oh, it's upside down now. Yeah. Oh, and you realize, and you go, huh? And then you listen to the soundtracks, and you're like, oh, okay, he's doing that again. Oh, no. Oh, it's modulated. Oh, it's modulated again. Okay, and down again, and up and down. So I would have to say, I hope Andrew Lloyd Webber does not. Someone else can.
DJ Sarah just commented, I love the show. Bathing Beauty is a bop.
Bathing Beauty is a bop. Meg deserved better. Bathing Beauty is a bop. And that's the bit. Meg deserved better, and that's where like Love Never Dies, because we see Meg as a character, not just a best friend. I really like that. And I actually don't mind her story arc. I don't mind that she goes a bit crazy. I don't mind what happens to her. I understand every plot point for her, especially when they rewrote it. Unfortunately, the script in the DVD wasn't 100%. And also Christine's blood pack, spoiler alert, the blood pack didn't go off at the end. And I was like, you weren't live. You could have reshot that, and she's patting it, and you can see her trying to make it go. And I'm going, you could have reshot that, guys. Come on. But yeah, other than that, as a musical hot take, I did not mind Love Never Dies, and I am not sorry about it because
I don't mind
personally,
it at all when I need a good laugh, just like with Diana. Well, Diana the musical and Love Never Dies
oh
for
my
my
god, Diana the musical.
bad day.
Oh my god, Diana the musical. Oh my god.
I'm not ready to
Oh,
talk about
no, I'm not ready.
so but Andrew Lloyd Webber, I think, is a good songwriter, but I don't think he's a great composer. I don't think he's a great
Yeah,
orchestrator.
I think he is good. I feel I feel like about Andrew Lloyd Webber the same way I feel about George Lucas and is it Stephen Moffat, who wrote a lot of Doctor Who and Sherlock for the BBC in the UK. They are all very good at what they do when they're working with other people. You know, if they're left to their own devices, like when Moffat was left to do a lot of, I think it was Doctor Who, the writing just because it was almost like, oh, you've done so well, here, have the keys, do whatever. And that was when it started to tank because they didn't. And like when George Lucas was given the reins completely, not that I know a lot about Star Wars, but I know enough to go,
Oh,
when
this
it
is
was
where
just him, you need other people to collaborate. So I think Andrew Lloyd Webber could write maybe a good 2 songs, maybe a good hook for a show, but I would want other people, lots of other people, as proven by all the Andrew Lloyd Webber not musicals that have been done about Peter Pan. There's like at least 5 out there, some of them terrible, just not great, and there's some great ones. If you want a good Peter Pan musical, go listen to the musical adventure. It's just called Peter Pan Musical Adventure. Genuinely amazing, and that's my favorite cast recording. The costumes were a bit meh, but you can just listen to the recording. You don't have to look at the costumes; it's fine.
Peter Pan Goes Wrong, one of my favorites.
Oh. People are shocked when I say I love this show. So
It's
shocked.
and
It's
we
so
talked
great.
when we talked before, we talked about this a bit about how difficult it is as a performer to make it look like you're experiencing things for the first time. They know those mistakes are coming. They know it's going to be funny. They know it's going to get a big laugh, and you have to look like you don't know it's coming. Especially there are moments, for example, spoiler alert, where the beds all collapse on top of each other and Wendy's sitting there knowing she's about to fall, and how do you not make yourself like jump before it happened? I mean, it's
Oh,
just brilliant.
so so I love that show. And yeah, people are surprised because I get asked it a lot. I have done a video about it that I keep redirecting people to. I think I have to make another one just to be like, hey, talking about this again. I really love it. It's so good. And especially as a Brit, all right, we love the pantomime. We are so big on the pantomime, on the he's behind you. Oh no, he isn't. Oh yes, he is. Which I had to teach some of my American friends, which I loved. Because I sent them the link to watch the show and they were like, why are they shouting? And I was going, right, pause. Let me just explain pantomime to you 1 minute. And then we carried on. But like, yeah, as a show, I love it. And I don't really like compare it as a Peter Pan adaptation because it's not like it's not meant to be. Like you get about like 5 minutes of the story and it's stuff going wrong, so it's fine. Like that's the point. So I love it, especially the flying because like flying well is a challenge. Flying upside down, pretending it's going wrong when you've actually still got complete control over what you're doing, that's harder.
Oh, he finally then goes only to be like
Yeah,
yanked.
and the poor, I think it's Trevor, the stagehand, who gets knocked out and has to fly upside down and just hang there. I'm going, oh my, like so much. And I think one of my favorite bits will forever just be a cab. Why is there a cab in the sea? I don't know, but there is, and they just carry on. And yeah, I like Chris, the director. I think he's my favorite because he's just so determined to take it seriously, even though the world is falling apart around him. He's just like, no,
When he's
I will do this.
Boat, when he appears in the swan boat,
I died.
oh,
And those swan boats, they're like in every park, in every big park in the UK has them, and every like traveling theme park has little mini ones. I was just like, it's just the childhood memories.
There are Wizard of Oz pantomimes. There absolutely are. I've seen some on YouTube. It's not an art form that we see in the United States, unfortunately, because it's hilarious. If you have the opportunity, definitely go online and search on YouTube for some pantomimes. They are a riot. I love watching them. They're so funny.
Oh, they're so good. They are. There is a lot if you search for ITV, which is a UK network. I don't know if it's a channel you guys have in the US, but there's an ITV series of pantomimes, and they were on every year at Christmas, and they were filmed live in a theater, and you get to hear the audience laughing, and just beautiful, beautiful. They did Cinderella, they did Dick Whittington, which has this amazing comedian called Julian Clary playing the cat in like a sequined shiny outfit. It's just the most beautiful thing you'll ever see. And there's a lot of modern pantos as well. They've put them up on yeah, there's loads. Please, the one piece of British culture when people are like Britain has no culture, we have one thing. We have the pantomime. That is it.
Should we all take a moment to sing God Save the Queen?
I have not met a British person who does not want to change the national anthem. We were like, if we're going to march into war, that is not the song. Every British person will argue our national anthem would be Mr. Brightside by the Killers. That's what we would be singing as we go in. If we're going into war, we're not singing God Save the Queen. We are singing that, or something from Six, the musical. That's British. That's what we're doing. Like, I would happily go into battle singing Sorry Not Sorry. I think it would be great.
Well, so we're now in an hour and a half. I think, do you want to start wrapping up, or should we take some more questions? Do you guys have any additional?
I don't mind. I have completely missed the questions. I will scroll through because it's saying to me I've got like 13 comments that I haven't even looked. Salutations. I'm hoping that salutations was a reference to Heather's because that makes me very happy. we can't start branching into other fandoms now. No.
Well,
the self-plagiarism of Andrew Lloyd Webber. Apparently, at some point, we made a very apt comparison. I don't know what we said, but apparently it was apt. That's good.
That's what we do here. We are nothing
David
but
Suchet is the narrator. Yes. Just to go back to the Peter Pan Goes Wrong show again, David Suchet is a British icon for playing Hercule Poirot, who I spent many a happy Saturday night as a teenager staying at home watching. I did not go out and party. The cool, amazing person that you see before you right now did not exist when I was a teenager. I was a weird goth teenager who sat in my room listening to My Chemical Romance and writing poetry and watching Poirot with my dad. And you know what? No regrets, because Poirot was amazing. Do you think the story of
when
Peter
he
Pan
gets knocked out, when he does the glitter thing and then starts talking about running over the child? Oh my god, I was dying.
And then he puts on the mustache. That was a reference to the Poirot character. If anyone watches the show, he puts on a mustache at some point and he starts talking in a Belgian accent. Yeah, that's the character he used to play. It's funny even if you don't know, but it's funnier if you know. Did you
like go ballistic at the reference since you know the show?
Yeah, it's a thing where all the British people are going, oh, he's doing the thing! Because he was Poirot for like I think it was at least a decade he played this detective Poirot. It was a shot. It went on for years. It was so good. I really want the box set. It's on my Christmas list.
I Googled all of the performers as I was watching it the first time because I was like, these people are clearly seasoned. Where do I know them from? Somebody wrote, Tyler wrote, if I'm going to war, I'm going in singing We're Off to See the Wizard.
That's a good one. Yeah. I can 100% agree with that one. Oh no, I pushed a button. No, wrong button. Don't push that. Okay, cool. It was like, do you want to make a poll? No, I do not. Go away, please.
We are able to do this. Don't ask us to do more. This is how technologically savvy we are so far. We are barely functional millennials. Please help us.
Please, bear with us. We existed when Bebo was a thing. Please bear with us.
We
not going to get sidetracked talking about Bebo. Oh my god, it was so cool. Comment. Do I think the story of Peter Pan would change if Captain Hook was a woman?
Ooh.
What is the appropriate response to that? I feel like of all the characters to swap the genders of, it would make the least impact if it was Hook. Like you shouldn't change the character of the character of Wendy. It's very important that she's a girl, or at least female presenting. can be played by whoever, but very female presenting role kind of thing. The brothers, I say the Lost Boys is a title, so Lost Boys is just their title. They can be anyone pretty much. But there is a thing about Wendy being the girl, but you could tweak that. You can make her the mother instead of being a Lost Boy. She's the mother. That can still work. There was an adaptation that was put on the stage where Hook was being played by a woman, and it was a very big one. I think it was the National Theatre, and I thought it was okay. I didn't really enjoy the actor's performance very much, which probably didn't help. I don't think it changes the story particularly, but I don't know. There's something that doesn't quite sit right with it. I don't know. I feel very picky saying it. There's just something. Hook being I mean, it couldn't have gone to Eton for starters, so that whole thing would have to be edited around. Because there isn't really a girl equivalent of. I mean, there is, but I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting one. On a technical level, it wouldn't change the story too much, but I feel like in a way it's important, particularly because it's a dual role where they're also playing Mr. Darling. Now, yes, you could have Mrs. Darling and you could make it modern. You could have it be two mothers. There's probably no problem with that. I think, yeah, on a technical level, there's no problem with it, but you would have to twist around the story a bit because, I mean, you could play on the whole, it could be like Peter fighting his mother. You could play on that angle if you wanted to, but I really don't like the idea of Hook being Peter's dad and a previous Lost Boy. That it feels like a connection that doesn't need to be made. They are perfectly good as, separate entities. So I don't, technically, no, but it would need, there'd be a lot that would need to go into it. It's not just a case of cast whoever you want. You would have to put a lot of thought into why you make the changes that you do. So I think, yes, technically, yes, but there's a but.
But I think for the Wicked Witch of the West, you can do it. So L. Frank Baum structured Oz very specifically to have all of the power players, good, evil, and everything in between, women, because he was a very firm feminist and a supporter of the suffragette movement. His mother-in-law was Matilda Jocelyn Gage, who was a prominent suffragette, and his wife, Maud Gage, was also very strongly advocating for women's rights. And so he wrote all of his characters that were in any sort of power, with the exception of the wizard, who bungles everything he does, to be women. And so changing any of the female characters or female presenting characters to men does skew the purpose of the original story to a point of unrecognizable. However, I have seen some men play the witch, and they do it in drag, not, kind of ham-fistedly. It did change the dynamic and make the witch a bit more straight up aggressive rather than, because I feel like the witch is very calculating and kind of petty way that women are to each other. But when you change that to a man, it's just straight up like, I'm going to murder you so hard as soon as I can. That message gets a lot stronger. So it does complicate the message a little bit if you start swapping the genders when they were purposefully calculated in a certain way. But in terms, somebody asked me the other day if Dorothy was gay, would that change the story? Not at all. Not at all.
I remember this video. Yes.
No, I'm certainly, I'm not a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. However, I'm a staunch ally, and no, I genuinely, and I'm not saying this just to pander, I genuinely don't think it changes anything. Love is love, and who people love is a totally private thing, and it changes nothing about anybody else's life. So, if you disagree, mind your own business. That's my little PSA. Here I am, down off my soapbox. But, I don't think it changes the story at all. But swapping genders can change the dynamics.
Yeah. And yeah, I think if you're going to swap the gender, you need to have a good, it's like changing anything in an adaptation. If you've got a strong reason for doing it, then that's fine. But if in answer to the question, why are you doing this? If your answer is to see how it is or to be different, then I personally would say, well, don't do it. Go back and revisit, look for some reasons, because it's not always a bad thing. But, when you're adapting someone else's work, sometimes you have to look up why they made things the way that they were. So yeah, I would agree on that one. And yeah,
and so who said Dorothy was straight anyway? Exactly. We can't keep assuming. Yeah. The assumption is always, but it shouldn't be. So let's change that narrative, new generation.
Yeah, exactly. Just because you don't know or you don't see anything doesn't mean that they are anything, and that's definitely something we as a generation right now I think can really appreciate. You can delve a little deeper into things. I did do that, and people were asking for Pride. They were like, is there any good representation in the Neverland? And I was going, well, there's one with the fairies. They are canonically male, female, and anything in between. That's great. And then I would point to characters like Hook, who I say doesn't deliberately, from the way he's described, particularly in the play descriptions, doesn't conform to what would be considered masculine at the time in particular. When you think about stories like this, you've got to take into account the time in which they were written.
Of course.
Like nowadays when someone's writing a character, they wouldn't necessarily have to conform to anything, whereas back then there would have been slightly more stronger definitions of male and female kind of thing. And Hook definitely didn't, and he very deliberately was described as having feminine qualities and a touch of the feminine and things like that. So I think Hook is quite a good representation of speculative, could be somewhere in the fluid spectrum, and sexuality. We really don't know anything about that, so I wouldn't really speculate, but he could be a lot of various different things. So with characters like that, it's definitely interesting to speculate. But again, please speculate with the adult characters, not the eternal children. I'm very, very bored of saying that, but I have to say it a lot. Is Peter this? Please no, he's a child and he's not human. Next question. Is Peter no, please no, he's a child and not human.
Exactly.
Like I'm glad that you relate to him, and I relate to him in many different ways, but that's not something I relate to. My gender and sexuality are not something that I take from Peter Pan or push onto him. I think there are a lot of better representations out there than trying to force it on someone where it just isn't applicable, But Captain Hook, go for it. Pretty fiery.
Very interesting story. Actually, this HBO show, I haven't watched it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Pirates and Blackbeard and representation. Somebody help me. What is the name of this show?
Oh, the Our Flag Means Death show.
Yes. So, we're getting so many people are the lion says straight up, I'm just a dandelion. And people on stage read that a certain way sometimes. And it works. I get it. He's like, I got the occasion. He's like, oh, fluff my
fancy meaning going on. He's like, yeah, And you could argue a touch of the feminine in that he doesn't want to be malicious and attack everybody. You could argue that. I'm not saying that is an intrinsically feminine thing, but again, when it was written, that was a very breaking his own stereotype as a male lion. He was supposed to be but wasn't. And I can imagine him with very sparkly claws as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I can see that, right?
If I ever get to direct a production, that will be a thing.
To match Dorothy's shoes. There we go.
Exactly. I don't know about you. I think this is a good place to wrap up. What do you think?
We can do.
You guys, I just let's all give a round of applause for MaukusNoise. If you are not following them, please head over there and do so. This was amazing. And this really came from our commenters and people coming around and saying, this is what we want to see. Maybe we should do this again. Would you do this again?
Yes. We'll think of more topics. We'll think of more topics than Disney and the live versions of musicals.
Yeah, send us. If you guys have anything else you want us to talk about, definitely come into our comments, send us and let us know. Head over to our Instagrams and send us DMs and do all that fun jazz. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Us with all of the comments. Give us things to talk about. We love it. Please do it. And follow this amazing person. I'm assuming you're over there. Follow this wonderful person, because whether you know lots or not, you can learn lots about the Wizard of Oz and Peter Pan with us, and it's all going to be great. Let us take you on a journey.
Thank you genuinely so much from the bottom of my heart. You're amazing, and this was so fun, and your content is incredible. I'm genuinely a fan, not just not a colleague, a genuine fan. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. I'm so appreciative.
I love you. I got several messages in my comments telling me to do a duo with you, and I was far too scared to comment and message, but I was brave for you guys. For you guys in the comments, I was brave, and I sent a message, and I got a reply, and as soon as the reply came through, I went to my Discord and messaged my friend in all capital letters and went, what do I say now? So
luckily we were equally starstruck, so it was a case of just calming each other's nerves. But thank you guys so much for being so incredible, and all the likes and comments. I'm so appreciative for all of you. And yeah, this was so fun. I know it's extremely late where you are. Have a wonderful night's rest. And we will collectively see you all in the coming days on our respective channels.
In our
Bye.
many, many drafts of content.
Love you. Mwah.